We have lost the sound, Mr. David Rose. He will be providing us with a lot of comprehensive guides to the world of angel investing. I hope we can get you back live again very soon. Mr. David, are you still there? Okay, we'll be back with Mr. David very soon. We will speak with Mr. David about early stage startups and the methods of minimizing risk and maximizing returns. It will be a very, very beneficial session, hopefully. But once we get him back, we'll be live again. Mr. David, can you hear me? Mr.
Okay.
David? Yeah, I can hear you now clearly.
Okay.
We have lost you about a minute and a half ago or a minute ago, so if you can go back and start again.
Okay, my apologies for the technical glitch here. So as we discussed, the goal here is to identify a lot of companies, do your diligence, which means understanding whether the company is worth investing, and then negotiating a valuation. And the challenge with negotiating a valuation is companies at the startup stage are not worth anything because they're not big companies yet. They're not making money yet, and they're just starting. So when you negotiate a valuation, what you are saying is, how much of ownership of the company will I get for my money? And therefore, when you put your money in, the first thing to understand is that you start to lose it. Because definitionally, even great companies, there's something called the J curve. The value of your investment goes down when you first invested, and then only over time will it go up. So you have to be prepared for a very bumpy road. And here is perhaps the most important thing in understanding valuation, which is what we call the secret economics of the angel. So let's say you have $1 million that you're going to be putting into angel investments. You want to have it over many deals. So let's say you'll divide it over 10 different deals. And if you're trying to get that 25% average annual return, it takes typically 5 to 10 years, let's say 6 years, to get your money back out. So this is a very long-term investment. And so if you're trying to get 25% return over 6 years, that's 1.25 to the power of 6, which means you have to, at the end of the day, get 3.8 times your money. But there's a slight problem with this. And the problem is that 5 out of every 10 startup investments fail completely. Of the remaining ones, 2 will give you back just the money you put in 6 years later. And 2 of them, hopefully, will be successes and return 2 or 3 times the money. But now when you start looking at what that actually means to your investment, it gets to be pretty tough, because 5 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 3 is 6, but each of those only accounts for 1/10 of your portfolio. So if you're trying to get 3.8 times your money back after 6 years, and that's the results you've had, well, you add up all those returns and you subtract them from the 3.8 that you're trying to get to, and you realize that you have a hole in your portfolio where you need to still make 3 times your investment. And that's not 3 times your investment in one company. That's 3 times your investment in every company in your portfolio, which means that that one last company, your home run, the one that's going to return your portfolio, has to return 30 times your investment. 30 times. That's a very big home run. The only problem is you don't know which of all those 10 companies you're investing in is going to be that one, which means that, logically, when you look at investing in companies, every company in which you invest has to have the potential for returning 30 times the investment on that company. So you have, out of 10 deals, the possibility of getting 1, which then leads us to the biggest thing you have to understand about angel investing is it's not one-off. You must build a portfolio. And that means, if you think about it, if you invest in only one company, you have a 50% chance, 50-50 odds of losing 100% of your money. But it turns out the more companies you invest in, up to a point, the better your odds are of making a return. And this is a wonderful chart by Simsonov, which shows a Monte Carlo simulation of what happens with a portfolio, taking the exact same universe of companies. If you have a portfolio of 1, you have a 50% chance of losing everything. If you have a portfolio of 5, that's the red line as you can see there, the odds are your 50% chances you will make your money back. If you have a portfolio, however, of 100 companies at the other end, that's the green line, you'll see that you have a 50% chance of making more than a 3x return, and that's where your returns come from. So therefore, the goal here is to build a portfolio. Once you've got your portfolio invested, then the goal is to add value. And remember, I told you angel investing is tough. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. There are a lot easier ways to make money, and if you don't have the right mindset for this, it can be very stressful. But on the other hand, as somebody who's been doing this for many years, I can tell you that if you like startups, if you like entrepreneurs, if you're willing to put in some work, it is extraordinarily fun. So here are the things as an angel investor that you are going to be expected to do by the company in which you invest. Everybody who's an angel should be expected to add value in some way. And the very basics here are, 1, refer them customers, whatever their industry is. If you know people who might be in the market for their services, then refer them. When the company posts news and tweets, retweet them, amplify their message so people can have it. If you know the industry, suggest ideas. Don't be a pain in the neck, but be helpful if you think that there's a way or something that they could do. If you come across a competitor to the company probably knows who most of its major competitors are, but for small new companies, you may find a competitor before they do. So it's helpful to make sure that they know who they are. You want to share news stories with them if you think it might be appropriate to their business and they haven't seen it, and you want to be able to support them all the time, unconditionally almost, because it's very, very tough being an entrepreneur. Now, that's the basics that everybody is expected to do. But if you have the additional ability to do so, there are other ways in which you can really add a lot of value. So first of all, you should generally be prepared to invest in a follow-on round. No, there has not been a single company in history that was one and done, that took your single investment and then became a big success. Typically, companies require multiple rounds of funding. And as an angel investor, you typically have the right to invest in multiple rounds of funding, future rounds. So prepare to save some of your money so that when the company is successful and needs more, you can put it in. Giving access to your network, particularly in the Middle East, extremely important. Often these entrepreneurs do not have access to the people that you do. So share your LinkedIn, connect with them on LinkedIn, ask who they need connections to, introductions, and make that. Share your insights in the industry. If you have the ability, you can help them with their team by facilitating off-site meetings or coaching the CEO. And if you're really an industry expert and can be really helpful to them, you might volunteer to serve on the board. Serving on a board of a startup company is not a fun perk. It's a lot of work. So be sure that that's something you want to do before you volunteer. But most importantly for doing all this, because remember, there are easier ways to make money. But why do we do this then? Because the non-financial rewards, the things you get out of angel investing in addition to your money. Remember, the title of my book was Making Money and Having Fun. And both of those have to be true for you to really want to do this. 1, I showed you how to make money. 2, the non-financial rewards here are extraordinary. And I've been doing this now for 20 or 30 years. As I said, I'm a 3rd-generation angel investor. And so 1, you get to keep up with what's happening. You get to see new things, the newest devices and business models and technology before everybody else does. You get to have some of the feeling of being an entrepreneur without the responsibility of actually running your own company. It's like being a grandparent. You get the pleasure of children without having to change the diapers. Most importantly, for many of us who have been successful, it is giving back and helping young entrepreneurs come up, and that's can be enormously rewarding. And then there is of course, meeting other angel investors who tend to be people like you who are fun and cool people to meet. And finally, there is helping the world, helping the economy, helping the kingdom, helping the country by creating the next generation of the economy. So what are the things that you shouldn't do as an angel investor? And here are the things that many, many angels make, the mistakes they make when they first started. So first of all, when you go hear a pitch for a startup company, the overwhelming instinct will be to put your money in right away. It sounds so good, so wonderful. Except that every pitch sounds wonderful. And so sit back, wait. If you go to an angel group, listen to several pitches before you make an investment. If you're prepared to make money, do your homework, do your due diligence, as we discussed. Don't invest in something you have no clue about. That's a guaranteed way to lose money. So tend to invest in something you or somebody very close to you really understands, because you're investing at the early stages, and that determines how much of a piece you will get of the company. If you invest at too high a valuation for the company, that means your piece will be smaller, and even if the company is a success, it may not outweigh the risk. And so there are ways to work with your lawyers to do this. Make sure you reserve capital for follow-on investments. Make sure you have a portfolio of deals. If you don't have a long-term commitment, you've got a real problem, because typically the average holding time for an angel investment is somewhere between 8 and 10 years. So you have to be committed to do this for a very, very long term. And so now let me just leave you with, if those are the worst things, those are the mistakes, what are the best things? Here are the top 10 best angel investor practices. And this is a way to summarize everything I've just told you, right? First thing, generate lots of deal flow. Join an angel group. You will see lots and lots of companies. The average angel investor sees 40 different opportunities before they choose one to invest. Get all the information in, do your due diligence. There are platforms and tools, and your fellow investors can help with this. Once you have seen all these opportunities, pick the ones that have the biggest high potential for a very high return. But also, if they don't hit the stars, at least they may have something, a business that has some viability. You want to negotiate a reasonable valuation, but reasonable for you as an angel means you're looking to at least a 30x return over time. You then want to add value and be helpful to the company in which you're investing, because you are a partner of them. You want to have extra money that you can reserve for your follow-on rounds when the company is doing well and needs more money. You put in more cash over there. When it comes time to exit the company, you want to be able to help the company, introduce them to potential acquirers, and then you've got to be realistic and realize that most of your investments are going to fail completely. But once you do, for the ones that succeed and return that 25% or more return for you, and you're successful and happy, and then you come back to forums like this and you repay the industry by speaking and helping and working with other startup companies and other investors. And that is a very quick overview and introduction to angel investing. Have a wonderful conference. This is great. It's a lot of fun. You can make a lot of money doing this, but it takes a very special person, and hopefully that's you.
Thank you, Mr. David. You have provided us with a comprehensive guide to the world of angel investing. Thank you very much. What a very beneficial session. Ladies and gentlemen, the entrepreneurial ecosystem has witnessed an appetite for high net worth individuals and family groups to invest in regional and even local startups. What is happening in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Is Saudi Arabia a home to many angel investors? Let's hear it directly from angel investors in the next panel. They will give us a lot of insights. The panel will be moderated by investment manager at SBC. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Haifa Al-Mikbil. Haifa, the floor will be all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to our audience who's joining us from Saudi and from across the world. We have a list of speakers who's joining us today: Faris Al-Rashid, Dima Al-Yahya, Mus'ab Al-Hakami. My name is Haifa Al-Mikbil, and I'm an investment manager at SBC, and I will be your moderator for this session today. So the panel is going to be mainly focused on the angel investing in Saudi, rather than, I think, David Rose gave us a very interesting session explaining what is angel investing and who's an angel investor. And I think we will be mainly focusing on the Saudi aspect. So we'll just wait for our speakers to join. We have Mus'ab Al-Hakami. We have Faris Al-Rashid. Hi, Mus'ab. We have Faris Al-Rashid and Dima Al-Yahya as well. Good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with us. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I'll just highlight something. We will try to allocate some time to answer Q&As. I would encourage the audience to ask as much questions as they want, and I promise that if we have time, we will try to cover as much as we can as well. So I'll just wait for Dima to join, and then we could proceed with our session. So I think we can go ahead and start with introducing our speakers. We have Faris Al-Rashid, who is the founder of Uqal Network. So if you could just please give us an overview on who you are, your background, and a little bit on how you got into angel investing.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, and for you, Haifa, and also thanks for Munshāt for having this for the first angel investing forum. And I think it's the right timing with G20 and also with what's happening now in Saudi Arabia. Of really, there is let's say a boom in angel investing and startup. Who I am, I will say I'm the crazy one, as David said. Entrepreneur are crazy, and also the angel investor are the craziest. Having investing with this class asset, very risky class. So we started angel. We started the Uqal Angel Group in 2011. So almost 10 years from now. And I remember at that time, it was very difficult to use angel investor because everyone, when you say angel, you know, in our culture, it doesn't give a nice word. So we tried to translate it and try to convince the people, and especially the entrepreneur and the investor, to come in one platform at that time. Alhamdulillah, today we have more than, I think, 4 angel network group. Dima also, she started Women's Park and other angel investors. So yes, I am the founder and the chairman of Uqal Group. And I'm having fun, as David said.
Great. I think I'd like to highlight as well that Faris is one of the angel investors who turned into a fund manager as well. So he's also managing Diraya VC funds. Yes. So yeah, he got a bit of both. Thank you so much, Faris. I'll pass it to Dima Yahya. Welcome to the session, Dima. Pleasure to have you with us. Dima is the founder of Women's Park. Dima, if you could just give us a brief on who you are, give us a brief on your background. I know that you actually worked in technology and innovation before founding Women's Park. And tell us how you actually got interested and you actually started working in the angel investing field.
Well, thank you, Haifa, and thank you for Munshāt and Jen Saudi for conducting such a very important forum, which really indicates the vision and the strategy and the plans that Saudi is going forward with, and to ensure that entrepreneurship and small and medium businesses are the drivers for the economical growth and GDP contribution in the future. A glimpse on Women's Park, of course. I've been working in enabling the ecosystem for most of my professional career, from enabling developers to entrepreneurs to launching and developing incubators, accelerators. So have been in all the value chain, and in each phase it has occurred the gaps and the issues that either entrepreneurs face or idea owners face or even investors face. And therefore found that there is a big gap when it comes to the investment, where investors find the right startups to invest in. And this is where I wanted to contribute in. And of course, with the support of our guru, Abu Abdullah Faris and Dr. Nabil Koshek, they have supported and helped to crystallize this idea and this initiative, which is Women Spark. Women Spark is an angel investors network, and it is strictly, or it is focusing on women investors that invest in inclusive startups, either male or female investors, founders, sorry. And why did we want to focus on women investors specifically is because we wanted to grow that ecosystem of women investors, knowing the importance of their contribution either to the economical growth or also to the ideation as well. So if we look at the landscape in Saudi, we find that 53% of our IT graduates are women. So we have a lot of skilled women and resources that only 13% of them are employed. So this is an opportunity for us to shift those women from job seekers to job creators. And another aspect is we find women founders from reports from multiple government organizations that 40% of startups in pre-seed and ideation phase are women. But when we see them, when they reached the stage Series A or B, they are less than 0.50%. So it tells you of all the issues that women founders face for them to raise funds. And we look at the last aspect, which are investors. 30 to 40% of the wealth in banks are owned by women, but women do not control their investments. So they go into the traditional way of investment, which is real estate or stock or so on, either because of lack of knowledge, either because lack of platforms, either because they're intimidated of the entrepreneurial or the high-risk investment. So because of these three reasons, we have decided to create Women Spark and bridge that gap between women investors and increase the number of women investors to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Great.
And the statistics, sorry to interrupt you, but we have been running for a year now. We're a very young network. We have 24 angel investors, our members, and what do we provide? Actually, we have now a training program for women that haven't invested before, and it's running right now with the partnership of منشآت and Gen Saudi.
Great, thank you so much. I couldn't agree more, actually, Dima. I'm a big fan of the objective of Women Spark, and I think we're going to touch base more on the role of the networks, and maybe we could focus on the objective of Women Spark as we go through our discussion. Now, I'll pass it to Musab. Hakimi, Musab is an active angel investor. I don't exactly have the number of the investments, but he has been, mashallah, he's well known as an angel investor. He started, I think, investing in 2017, and he's the chief operating officer in Saudi. So, Musab, if you could just give us more details about your background.
Sure. Thank you, Haifa, and thank you, everyone, for this great opportunity. So today, to answer that question, today I'm sitting on a portfolio of more than 30 startups, tech startups globally. And I got into the investments after going through a couple of good and bad experiences. Some of them are good exits, some of them are bad exits. And I noticed that there is a gap in the market, and I loved actually helping and supporting entrepreneurs since I used to be one of them. So I decided, why don't I start develop myself and my know-how, and focus more on supporting those investors by injecting cash and sharing some know-how and connections.
Great. I think speaking of having failed exits and successful ones, I think this will lead me to the first question that I would like to ask to our speakers. I know that we said that we're not going to really focus on defining what is angel investing and who's an angel investor, but I think we would like to just educate our audience on who can be an angel investor. We all know that the asset class as a VC, or specifically the early stage investments, and the investor type, which is an angel investor, are quite new to the Saudi market. So if we could just educate the audience on who really can be an angel investor. Is it someone who's willing to take the risk? Is it someone who should be interested in this field? Is this game for everyone or no? Whoever would like to start, please go ahead.
So David, تفضل أبو عبد الله, go.
تفضل مصعب.
So David used the word crazy, and I think one of the main important characteristics for an angel investor is to be an optimist, crazy person, where you believe actually that you can change the world and make some capital gains from these investments. The thing is, to become an angel investor, you need to go through a couple of good and bad experiences. Some people decided to take the corporate life, then jump on this wagon of this vehicle, and other people decided to start their own companies, then start investing. So there is no specific definition from my side to who can become an angel investor.
Yes, I agree with Mus'ab. Also, I can add that I think to be an angel investor, you must know that you are going to lose, and it's a very risky asset. If you are not willing to lose, I don't think this is the right place for you to be an angel investor. The second thing is you have to have something in your passion to give up to this entrepreneur, because they are really crazy and really take a lot of your time to give to these entrepreneurs. If you don't have time, if you don't have the experience and the passion, it's very difficult for you to be in this asset. And believe me, it's not something that you want to have fun. Yes, it's fun, but it needs a lot of time from your time to invest with this entrepreneur. If you have a work and you want to be an angel investor, it's not very easy to work and also to be an angel investor. Being fully dedicated to be an angel investor, because as Mus'ab said, Mus'ab today he has 30. Normally, as David says, 10 to 15, let's say, when you have a portfolio of these number of companies, how you are going to give them time? And if you have another job, actually, angel investor is a job, and it is taking a lot of time of you. So if you are not ready, I don't think this is the right job for you.
Definitely. I think there is a quote that I read the other day, which says that if you're willing to invest in angel investing, in the early stage startups, you just need to invest, forget about that money, and just go to work and never think that you ever had that money. So I totally agree. I think there is one point that I'm actually curious to learn about, and I think our audience, I see a couple of questions raising the same, the audience raising the same question. So what about the financial position of the angel investor? I mean, in the US market, you would see that the SEC would cover the angel investing under the securities law, where they would have the angel investor has to be accredited investor. They have to have a minimum net worth. They have to have an annual income. Now they try to have less restrictions, where if you have the knowledge, you can go ahead and invest. How important is this, the financial position? Let's say I would always read that, allocate 10% of your net worth to be invested in the angel investor, because it's crazy, as you mentioned, and it's extremely risky. So how important is this point?
If you allow me, I think you have answered actually that question. It is very high risk, and I think it's not for when it comes to the financials. You have to be very aware that you will lose that percentage that have you allocated for your investment. Therefore, you have to put priorities on where your money should go in, either your household and your living. And so on, and that portion that you are willing to invest in, that you decide that this is an investment that is not coming back. Therefore, I think that the financial status of an angel investor is very important. I'm not talking about having wealth and having millions, but at least you have what it takes for the living, and you have a buffer that you can risk later on.
Great. There is another point that I'd like to highlight. So Faris, you mentioned that you have to be passionate about this, meaning that you don't only provide capital, you have to put your heart into, I personally have seen angel investors who would act extremely passive, and other investors who would actually know the startup by heart. You would ask any questions that they would be able to answer any questions that you might have. Is this the right model for an angel investor? Would an angel investor be passive? Is this something that is common and that you would see in the market, or the angel investor should play a role more than providing capital?
I don't think an angel investor we use passive. We are investing in the company, not just putting money. We are putting, as you said, heart. We put time. We feel that the company is ours. We are one of the team. So that's the real angel investor, and that's what makes makes different between two different angel investor. Angel investor who help the entrepreneur, who give them network, mentoring, chasing them every time, making sure that the business model is working, try to bring the income, the revenue to the company, trying to solve if they have a problem with the business plan or business model. So the angel investor is that's what we call it, smart money. And that's why angel investor is only investing in the early stage. Angel investor, they don't invest in late stage, because in late stage you cannot be you will be a passive, because there will be a VC, there will be a big player. So yes, to answer your question, yes, the angel investor is heavily worked with the startup.
Great. I think I'll move to the second question, and I think I've seen questions from the audience asking, do we have networks in Saudi? So of course we do have two founders of the networks today with us. I think we just want to talk a bit about what is really the role of the angel network. Do you really act as just a middle point between the investor and the entrepreneur, or you do more than that? So, for example, do you actually contribute in sourcing deals? Do you contribute in the due diligence? So I'll start with Faris, and then we could move to Dima to talk about a little bit, to focus more on the objective of Women's Park. And then lastly, we will move to Mus'ab, and as an angel investor, we would like to hear your views on how do you really think angel networks could help the angel investors.
Yeah, to answer your question is the name of عقال is عقول وأموال, which is the first two letter from عقول and the last two letter from أموال. Having an angel network, you need mind and money, which is you need the angel investor and also you need the entrepreneur. The angel network group is a platform. Bringing these two stakeholders in the network, which is the angel and the entrepreneur. Normally, I remember when we start عقال, the idea of why we start عقال, because when I see my friend who are an investor, they said, do you have deals? We said, yes, there is a deal. But how can we find them? Then the entrepreneur, when we see the entrepreneur, they said, there is no angel investor in Saudi Arabia. So that's when we make this network, it's make it easy for the angel investors and also for the entrepreneur to pitch their idea or the project in front of real angel investor, not going just go to other investor and he doesn't know, is it a family office or is it an angel, or he is or she is an angel investor. So this network, it make it easy for the investor to see good deals and also to the entrepreneur to see a good angel investor who can, at least if they don't invest, they give him a good feedback about the business model or about the company.
Agreed. I think, Dima, if you could just tell us more and if you could talk about it from your perspective, since you have a very focused objective.
Yeah, well, I would like to also, build on Abu Abdullah's what he elaborated on about networks. And the struggle that we face is finding each other. And if you have the willingness to invest and to support, and you have the energy, you have the connections, but where do I go? How can I find these good ideas, and how can I find the right startups to invest in? And the other way around, the startups struggle to find the right investors, and then if they can't, they will be knocking doors on investors that might not be the good fit for their business. Also, the networks, not just do they bridge the gap between the investor and the startup, but also the investors themselves start educating one another and start supporting one another to because at the end of the day, the role of an angel investor is a coach and a mentor. So the more that they get more experience from the network around them, the more they would be mature angel investors. So the network is very important in connecting to the right people on the network. Second, also, I think one major thing in the networks, and I think this is we see it in Uqal because it's more mature and it's the most mature angel network in Saudi, is when a number of angel investors want to invest in an investment. It's very hectic for the cap table and also for the startups to be dealing with all of these angel investors. So when we have these syndicates and we have these groups of investors, we're having a lead investor that will represent that angel group, it's much better and easier for a startup as well to deal with all of these angels at the same time. So I think that's a very important role that networks provide. Also the credibility. So because of the network chooses very significant investors and not everyone. And the intention of the investors in each network is to invest, and they have a role. And they have commitments. Like, for instance, Women's Spark, we do put a commitment on each and every investor. From hours of mentorship, from even financials to invest, the number of also investment. So therefore, the startup will find more, will reach to more credibility, also engaging with a network and reaching out to a network. In terms of Women's Spark, when I'm talking about specifically Women's Spark, I think that we are focusing more on educating the investors and increasing the number of women investors. I've always been asked, and I've been asked a lot, why? Why do you want to increase the number of women investors? Not only to circulate their investments and their money, but also we see a lot of great ideas out there. And these ideas could be related to the household, could be related to a certain area where more women understand it more than men. And there were a lot of ideas that were killed. They didn't get investments and they couldn't raise funds. Why? Because male investors couldn't understand it and didn't see a market for it. And therefore, they were not investable. Not because they were bad ideas, but because the importance of it was not very clear to the male investors. So if we bring in another perspective, which is the woman perspective to the play, there will be an equal chance and a balance in the opportunities going forward to the startups. For instance, I'll give an example. There was a great idea about an application that mobilizes teachers, after school teachers, either for academia or either for hobbies or so on. So they were struggling to raise funds for 18 months. And although in a lot of networks and in a lot of VCs for them to raise these funds, when they reached out to women investors, they immediately understood how important this idea is, because on WhatsApp, all women or mothers are looking for teachers and looking for after-school activities, and you see that a burning issue that mothers find, especially accredited teachers, where it has ratings, it's credible, it goes back to an institution, and therefore they raised money easily through women investors more than others. So this is just an example of why that aspect is very important. And another thing is, and I always say that women angel investors do not get access as fast and as massive as male investors. And why is that? Because of the community. Most of the deals happen in dinners and in istirahas, I call them, and where we are not invited, and therefore we don't get access to these opportunities as frequently. So therefore, having a network that is connected to the male investors will help in sourcing more ideas. The last point is, I'm sorry I elaborated too much, but the last point also is that when we look also to the women founders and also the women investors, sometimes they do not have the right soft skills like communicating with confidence, negotiation skills. Therefore, they get so intimidated when in groups of investments that are very hard for them to contribute and ask the right questions. So therefore, we wanted to create this safe environment for them to speak their mind, to them to experiment, and for them to learn from other experienced angels. And here's where we have an initiative, which is our male advisors and that are on board to support and help our female investors. And sorry for the long elaboration.
That was really useful. Thank you so much. I know that Women's Spark was founded recently, but we really hope to see more female angel investors. I'll pass it to Mus'ab now. I know that we have two networks and we have one angel investor. So it would be interesting to hear your views on how you really expect the angel networks to help you. What is the added value that you're expecting to see from the angel networks?
Okay, I think one of the main challenges actually facing most of the angel networks globally is, and mainly here in the region, is that they need to build and create a bigger and larger pool of angel investors. And I second what Dima said about the education and the mentoring. And it does not have to be to the startups only, to the entrepreneurs, but to the angel investors wannabe, or to a new generation of angel investors. And this is how are we going to build an ecosystem? Because once we have an experienced angel investor giving his experience and helping another angel investor, this will inject more cash into the ecosystem. It will help more startups actually to fundraise. On the other aspect is I believe that the market will structure itself, and we will start seeing mini angel groups where we have different level of experience in each one of those groups. Because at the moment the ecosystem is still developing, we are still at the early stages. If the whole ecosystem is a startup, then still we are pre-A, and I think we still need some time till we reach the level where we have 50-60 angel groups. Group does not have to be with 50, 70, or 100 angel investors. It's okay to start a group with 5-6 people and specialize in a specific network, or a specific industry.
Yes, I think this will lead me to my next question. So you mentioned that if the whole ecosystem is a startup, so there is a lot of work and efforts that we need to do going forward. So, but I'd like to, so the audience now know about who's eligible to be angel investor, what is the role of the networks. If Firas, if we could, since you've been in the market and you founded the Uqal since 2011, if you could tell us how did the market change? Where do we stand today? So if you could just give us a little bit, we see more networks today, we see more angel investors. So just give us a bit of overview on how the market has developed.
It's the market, especially the last 2 years, it was growing very well. And I think what happens with Munshāt and SVC, especially the program with the co-invest with SVC and the other angel network group, we can see that the last year more than 50% of our investment in Uqal is from SVC program, which is the co-invest. And this is, I think, helping the ecosystem. And also, as Mus'ab said about we will have, inshallah, a lot of angel group. Hopefully, we will see different group with different sector. I remember when we start Uqal, people ask us, what is your sector? We said, which is sector? We are the only one. We need to, and we don't have enough deals to say, oh, I want to be only in fintech, or I want to be only in edutech. So I think what happens now with the ecosystem is growing, is more mature than before. I believe we need to make more of initiatives, like what happens with Saudi Fintech Lab. These initiatives are very good, and also having angel investor training. And I think we need to train the angel investor about how they help the startup, how they do the valuation, what is the convertible note, what's the difference between convertible note and equity. All these information, we can see it. Some of the angels, they want to invest, and they have the passion, the will, but they don't know how. So this is very easy. We can train them how. And I think last year we had a very good training with Jen Amal Dukhan. She did a great job with training our angel investor members in Uqal. And I hope that we have a lot of these training.
Great. I don't know if Dima and Musab, you have anything to add. Musab, I know that, and Dima, you've been engaged in the market maybe the last 3 or 4 years. So, so what really encouraged you to be in the market or to get into the market?
Well, yeah, as you said, Haifa, I've been there from upskilling developers to creating accelerators and incubators. I think that what motivates is the potential that we see in our youth and the great support and enablement right now, as we see in the country and in the government. These two both motivate to do more and gives more belief that we can do it, and we can. We have all the fundamentals that will enable us to reach. I think that's what motivates me. The change that has happened is rapid. And very fast, which shows how agile we can be. And if we really have that determination, that mindset of change, that we can do that. What is very unique in Saudi is that we don't have legacy. Like other big countries, especially from the G20 countries, which is the largest in economical capacity. We don't have that legacy, which we're fortunate. We have also our youth and how tech savvy they are. These are two fundamentals that enable us to do whatever we put our heads in doing. I really believe in the change that we're encountering, I think that what we have seen from 10 years now and what we see right now, this will not just enable the entrepreneurial play, but I think digital innovation specifically. The lead in digital innovation is very close to being realized in Saudi.
Maybe also, can I add to Dima, maybe the fintech is also, it's easier in Saudi Arabia to do it because the infrastructure of the banking system and also the payment gateways, it's very good timing for the fintech. And we would like also to thank Sama for having the sandbox and to bring the fintech companies to the to play in this. Before it was you cannot as a startup company you cannot do any fintech, only the banks, which is I think the opportunity is very good for fintech in the coming years.
Definitely. We have 10 minutes left. I think I would use the time to maybe take 4 minutes trying to talk about how are you expecting the market to evolve? And do you expect more restrictions or more limitations to happen or to be implemented on the angel investors? And what kind of government initiatives or support that you would like to see to help and develop the ecosystem and the angel investing market?
So I think the ecosystem is developing and the regulations are loosening up, which is a great thing, to be honest, simply because it will attract experienced investors and experienced entrepreneurs as well. What we expect to see in the coming period is more ex-entrepreneurs joining the investment groups and creating their own investment groups, which will build on that flywheel to accelerate the whole adaptation of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and growing the whole spectrum of startups in Saudi. That's from one angle. From another angle, CMA and Munshآت and a couple of other good entities, government entities, actually did a great job in facilitating and helping the entrepreneurs in the past couple of months and years to increase the appetite of the watchers to join the startups and to join the investment groups, so it can take us to the next level.
Great. I don't know if briefly,
I'll add on that.
add something. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I'll add on that. Three things, if I would really aspire to see, is more and more accelerator programs. I think that are backed up by either VCs or investors. I think that the past 2 years have evolved where we've seen very good quality startups coming out of accelerator programs. I don't see enough now, which we need more and more of them, maybe specialized accelerator programs. That's one. Second is the preparing startups for exit and IPOs. I think we need more to educate startups. We need more to work and help startups to consider such options of exit, like IPOs and listing in Muazi, for instance, market. The third thing is, which I do aspire, is to activate the programs and incubators that are in universities. I think they're not activated the right way. They are activated in isolation in the university itself, but I think they have to connect more with the investment ecosystem because there is treasures there, and I think it's a lost opportunity. So these are the three hopes and dreams that I have.
Okay, great. I think we will hear maybe the last point of view from Faris. Actually, I personally have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask, and I would like to apologize to our audience. We're really running out of time, so I'll leave it to Faris to give us his overview or point of view on this aspect.
I think I told you about the training. I think we had a very good program with SVC, which is the co-invest. We have Nemo, which is, I think, will make it easier for the exit. We need training to the angel investor because we don't see it today, and also sector focus of group like Saudi FinTech. We want to see Saudi EduTech. We want to see something like this to make it easier for the founders and also for the investors to go by sectors. The thing is, I can just finally say that after we see Kareem, the first unicorn in the Middle East, we saw a lot of companies started from ex-Kareem employees. I hope that in the coming years, we have a Saudi unicorn like Sari, inshallah, to be a Saudi unicorn. Then from that company, we will see a lot of other small companies coming from Sari and others. Inshallah.
Inshallah. I believe that we really do have number of names that we're expecting to see them, inshallah, growing and becoming unicorns, hopefully, in the near future. So we have 3 minutes. I would like to pass it to each one of you for 1 minute to just tell me or tell the audience the do's and don'ts that an angel investor should either avoid or do. So you have 1 minute for each one of you. You can start, Deepa.
Okay, well, I think I learned from actually Abu Abdullah and also Mus'ab. They have been in the market more than I do, but I think what I learned from them is that the first thing I see in any startup is the team. and the attitude and dynamics of the team and their passion and dedication. A second is the idea itself, and is it solving the right problem or not?
Okay, thank you. Faris?
يمكن يعني the most important things is don't يعني invest with a team that you cannot help them, or there is no chemistry. Yeah. If you think that this entrepreneur you can sit with them more than 1 hour or 2 hours, it's because sometimes you feel love of the business but you forget about the team. This is something that we can find in angel investor. Then because you invest, then after sometimes you said, why I'm giving this time for these people? So this is very important. The other thing is maybe try to make a good portfolio. Don't just go for 1 or 2 companies. As an angel investor, you have to have more, at least more than 5 companies, because you never know what will happen. Especially, also try to make it different sectors, and also invest. Like me, I'm investing in tech because that's what I know. That's my passion. I don't invest in something that I don't understand.
Couldn't agree more. I'll pass it to Mus'ab to conclude.
So thank you for that. Trust your gut feeling. Invest with people who are smarter than you. Invest with people that you would love to work with and for.
Great. We're in time. I'm so impressed. So thank you so much for our speakers. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I see actually some of the audience are starting to answer some of the questions, so I'm glad. And I'd like to apologize for the audience if we couldn't answer any of the questions that were raised. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you, and thanks to everyone who joined this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing panel gathering Saudi minds to share their insights on the stage of the market. You have highlighted key challenges in the building deal flow and key steps needed to create more opportunities for angel investor engagement. Thank you so much, Haifa, and to all your speakers. We have reached almost 97% of registered guests live with us right now. We have about 3,600 attendees from all over the world attending this forum, brought to you live from the capital of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. Thank you to the whole team working backstage with us to bring you this forum in the best outcome possible. Please go ahead and answer the question on the polls tab next to the chat tab to get engaged with us, please. Each one of you can actually go to the polls tab and answer the question there. للتذكير الناطقين باللغة العربية يوجد ترجمة فورية رابطها موجود في قسم المحادثات ومثبت أيضا للجميع غير الناطقين باللغة الإنجليزية. The next question is, what is the key differences between angel investing and venture capital investments? Our next session will answer this question, and I will leave the floor for the moderator of our next session, CEO of Gen Saudi, Amal Dukhan. Amal, you are back again with us on our virtual platform. Are you here? Okay, to those who are asking where is the poll that we can engage with, it's right next to the chat section on this side. You can see it on this side. There's a tab for polls. You can just click on it and you can answer the question right away. Amal Dukhan is back, CEO of Gen Saudi. Welcome back. I've been seeing you a lot today.
Thank you, Yasser, and we've been seeing you a lot and we're enjoying it so far. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All yours. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. So welcome back. And we hope so far that we've been covering interesting topics, all what's happening in Saudi Arabia. Now we're going to take you a little bit, further, but to someone who's been in different parts of the world, who's been building lots of communities and have been part of so many of the initiatives that happens in this world. probably our guest today is one of the early educators that I have been exposed to as well when I started to get into the entrepreneurial scene. So I want to welcome to the stage Brad Felt. And I hope that, Brad, you're already logged in and you're with us live. Hi.
There.
Hi, so great to see you.
My pleasure, happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So Brad is the author of Venture Deals, a book that we have seen Brad on every incubator, accelerator. Everyone who's interested in investing have been having that book as one of the books that are great references, besides also attending, the courses as well, the startup communities and the Startup Way, which is a recent edition that you actually launched after COVID. And by the way, I'm so happy I just got my own version on Audible. So it's going super great. I'm halfway through. And also you're the co-founder of Kickstarter and the managing director of a Foundry Group. So welcome, Brad, and very nice to have you here.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we've got about, 25, 30 minutes. So I want to start with your Startup Communities book. There's that part in the book where you talk about angel investors and angel investors group, and the early days in Boulder, Colorado, and how things used to be there at the very beginning with the roles of multiple angel groups, some efficient, some non, and I want to know from your point of view, because we're here starting to have lots of these angel groups evolving, and we're starting to also see the trend of angel investing, and a lot are interested, but still learning, and looking what are the best ways, to invest and all of that. So I want to know your point of view on the best practices maybe at the early stages for angel groups and what should they be doing, from your global experience. And then maybe later on to look into, angels themselves and the role that they play, in the startup life.
Well, angel investors are incredibly important in any startup community. And they're particularly important in the early stages of the growth and development of the startup community. Oftentimes, those angel investors come from one of a couple of places. They might already have meaningful financial resources. They might be owners of other types of businesses, sort of non-entrepreneurial or more mature companies that have generated some real wealth. Or they could be founders of other startups that have now had growth and success. I heard mention of Kareem earlier as an example, but those founders and early employees often are the next wave of angel investors in a new startup or growing startup community. Some of the best practices, especially around the angel groups, is simply make investments. One of the comments in the last panel was, don't just pick one company and try to get it right, but make a number of them, build a portfolio. And that portfolio is important because many of the angel investments that an angel group is going to make are going to end up failing. They're going to end up being zeros. And that's okay. One of the big lessons I learned in my angel investing activity, which started in 1994 and continued through 1996, sort of at the beginning of the rise of the commercial internet, sort of ended when I became a venture capitalist and started investing as a VC. So I stopped investing as an angel at that time. That dynamic is a powerful one because I learned in that period of time, those 3 years, I made about 40 investments, about one a month. About half of them were zeros. Half of them were companies that ended up not succeeding. And my return on investment on those was nothing. However, 3 of those companies generated each of them more than 100 times my investment. So just on those 3 companies, if you assume that I invested the same amount in all 40 companies, I invested roughly the same amount. I was already at a 300 times return divided by 40, right? So, I was already at almost a 10x return on my money just from those 3 companies. So that's just a really powerful sort of thing to lock in, is that you have this outsized return from a couple of companies. But on day one, when you make those investments, you think it's going to be a successful company. You're not making an investment in something because you think it's not going to work. You make the investment, you're like super excited. And the path forward is just so up and down and so challenging to go from the raw beginning to success. So that would be one big thing for angel groups that I'd say is make investments, make a lot of them. I know a lot of angel groups, especially in different parts of the US, who end up being more coffee clubs, or they become social events where they sort of all get together and entrepreneurs present to them and the entrepreneurs are excited and they put a lot of energy into it, but nothing emerges from it. Right. And that's not that helpful to the entrepreneurs. So I think the other comment I'd make sort of to start this is an angel group recognize that your role is to help support entrepreneurs. You're investing in entrepreneurs with the goal of helping them get their companies both funded and then grow. There's lots of other opportunities to spend social time together. So really view it as a functional activity to invest and engage with entrepreneurs.
That's very well said. And I think that trend that you just spoke about, it's the balance between the role of that angel group and not to turn totally, into a social kind of club. So it becomes efficient. And maybe, Brad, it's about also gaining that trust from the entrepreneurs, right? That this angel group is the right group to go for, to get the right mentorship, to get to the right investor. And maybe that takes time also to develop, for these angel groups. And I see that you started early on. I mean, Brad, you started as an entrepreneur yourself. And I'm sure that kind of wanting to help someone who's been, in your place, and you've been in there, you understand really what an entrepreneur goes through, you understand all of this stuff. So can we see like another breed of angels whom they were not entrepreneurs, but they also had the wealth and the money and they want to support? And how do we really balance between just giving the money and the right value, right? And so how do we build that within such individuals in the community?
I think there's a couple of powerful and key words to align that, and I'll just link back to my own experience in the 1990s, but then my experience again in sort of the 2007, 8, 9 timeframe, which was the middle of the global financial crisis, but was a period, especially where I live in Colorado, where there was a lot of engagement and a lot of activity around new entrepreneurial companies, new startups, and angel investing. So my path, I had no money. I started a company. I ran it for 7 years. I sold it. So I had lived experience of being an entrepreneur and all the ups and downs of running one's own company.
Yeah.
So when I started making investments as an angel investor, and here's the first word to give everybody, I think I had a lot of empathy for the entrepreneur. I understood what the entrepreneur was going through, and I was able to relate to the entrepreneur, even though I was now an investor in his or her company. And the important part of that, the notion of empathy, is sort of this understanding, being able to relate to what's going on and what needs to happen next. In 2007, 8, 2009, now having been through both being an angel investor, being a venture capital investor, being through the rise and the fall and the collapse of the internet bubble, and having a lot of stress and a lot of failure in both my investing and my investments, but then emerging out of that into a next wave of investing activity, I learned a lot and gained a lot of experience from it. And I started to run into not just other entrepreneurs who are looking to make angel investments, but people who had wealth from other areas, whether it was that they had wealth from real estate, or they had wealth from their family, or they had been in the financial markets, not necessarily as a venture investor, but doing something else, and had, were now looking to invest as an angel. And they didn't necessarily have that lived experience of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And what I encouraged them to do, and what I encouraged the entrepreneurs to do, was for them to work together, the angels and the entrepreneurs, to learn sort of what needed to be done to build the businesses. So in some ways, I put the burden on the entrepreneurs, and I took some of the burden myself to educate this next generation of angel investors to understand what the entrepreneurial experience was, to not treat it the same as a real estate investment, or not treat it the same as a sort of abstract financial investment. And again, that word empathy comes into mix. Even if you haven't had the lived experience, you can start to engage as a partner with the entrepreneur. You can view your activity as an angel investor not as a pure financial investment, although it is, but also as a way to learn and relate to the experience. And in the last panel, somebody said, at the very end, the importance of wanting to spend time as an investor with the entrepreneurs. And that is so absolutely key, because at the very early stages, these are very uncharted waters. You don't know where the company's going. It's going to change a lot. Things are going to be really stressful. The entrepreneur is going to make a lot of mistakes. The founding team is going to have trouble. They might have to change what they're doing. And as an angel investor, you're not actually in a position where you can necessarily control the company and tell the founders what to do, nor are you in a position where you can exit your investment by just selling your shares. You're in. And so if you're in as an investor, you're now trying to help. But your help is really supporting, as an angel, those entrepreneurs on their journey.
Well said. I mean, Brad, that part where you said that it's a responsibility on both parts, the entrepreneurs and the investors, I think it's well said, because most of the time it's either one blames the other, on who should be more ready, to meet and just come, halfway to meet the other one. So I think it's quite fair, to bring it in that format. So you have been, as we said, an entrepreneur, an angel investor, and as well, today you're, managing also the Foundry Group. So I think I want to highlight a little bit on, is there a direct relationship between angel investors and VCs? Should there be any talks happening, naturally in evolving ecosystems? And the reason I'm asking that is sometimes we see that friction that happens between some of the angels and the VCs. Sometimes they look at, some would blame the others that they're messing up the cap tables for the startups. So what is really going on here, and how should we really look into that? Again, some of the best practices here.
Yeah, I have personally always viewed angel investors as a very valuable part of the startup community. And as part of that, a very valuable part of the very early stage funding of these companies. You generally have different motivations for angel investors. One motivation for angel investors is they just like being involved early and helping support the entrepreneurs. That's at one end of the spectrum. Another end of the spectrum might be people who are being angel investors as they're building their portfolio on a path to becoming an institutional investor or venture capital investor or raising a fund. In anywhere on that spectrum, your reputation as an investor is critically important. And I like to encourage angel investors to be angels, not devils. And you see this a lot, which is that angel investors lose sight of the goal, which is to be supportive and helpful to the entrepreneur. When that angel starts to be challenging, especially in a new financing, that starts to generate negative reputational dynamics. And the one time that it happens, not necessarily a big deal, but the second or third or fourth, all of a sudden that angel starts to develop a reputation with entrepreneurs, but also with investors that they're not additive. There are a lot of things that angel investors can do to get into that category. One example could be very challenging in a Series A or even a seed type investment when new money comes into a company. Another example would be the dynamic when an angel investor is investing in a company and sets terms at the pre-seed or seed level that just don't make any sense. Complex terms, things that are ultimately going to have to be renegotiated when a traditional venture investor comes in. Another could be the angel investor that actually tries to exert too much control over what's going on with the company, even though they're a very small percentage, 5, 10, 15% maybe, or even less than 5% of the cap table. So there's a long list of things like this that I would say takes an angel investor and sticks them in the devil category instead of the angel category. And it often happens when two things kick in. One, the cliche, at least in the US, is that a lot of behavior around investing is motivated by fear or greed. You're afraid, your fear of missing out, FOMO, you're afraid that something's not going to work, so you invest defensively, or greed where something's working and you want to get more money into it. As a very early stage investor, sort of walking the balance between those things and continue to focus on being aligned with and supportive of and helpful to the entrepreneur, especially early on, will develop a reputation with VC investors of, wow, that person's an amazing angel. That person really helps. By the way, that has a feedback loop, which as you develop that reputation, it then attracts venture investors to the companies that you're acting as an angel investor in.
That's really nice, and I think we started to see some of that. If that angel investor joined this company, that means there's something interesting. So it kind of gives the idea of being value added always to the companies and all of these stuff. So I think we should, and we are already seeing some of these stuff. So if we want to also, before I jump into the next question, maybe to recap on that, Brad here, if we want to look at the top things that maybe an angel investor should not do, like common mistakes at the early stage, what could that be, to be avoided? And I know that these small tips could actually help a lot of people because they may not pay attention, to what they're doing at the beginning when they do it for the first time. So I'd love to hear your view on that.
So common mistakes would be having your terms be way too complicated. Angel investments should be straightforward. They're done at relatively low prices. They should be clean deals. Number two, taking an enormous amount of time to, quote, do due diligence or try to make a decision as an angel investor. Those 40 investments that I talked about between 1994 and 1996, I made a number of them after my first meeting once I started to understand what I was doing. You're really evaluating the person and the product, the founding team and the thing they're going after. And you're trying to decide whether you have an affinity for what they're working on and whether or not you want to work with the founders. Those are kind of the only two decisions. 5-year financial models, who knows, not helpful. Competitive landscape and sort of where they fit in, whatever they're working on is going to change. They're going to learn a lot as they start to get a product into the market and evolve. And if you want to go deeper on that, I encourage books like Eric Ries's The Lean Startup, which really talks about how to sort of rapidly iterate through many of the ideas at the very early stages. Another one, which I mentioned earlier, but I'll reinforce, is this idea of control. The founders don't work for you. You are an investor in their company. You're a part owner of their company. But the mindset, I think, as an angel investor is, okay, I've now invested. Now what can I do to help the founders be successful? And those are kind of the most obvious common ones. The other is to be very responsive and to communicate even when there's bad news. So I say to entrepreneurs, better to tell people bad news quickly. And for angels as well, better to respond to bad news, better to respond to good news quickly and compassionately. And constructively. An entrepreneur might be having a terrible day and they send a message via email that says, oh, everything's awful. Here's all the terrible things that are happening. And as an angel, you're a little detached. So you can be a little dispassionate and say, you know what? Yeah, that number 3 is the one you should be really worried about. 1 and 2, let's work through that together. Let's get on a call and spend some time. But number 3, that's the thing that I think you should really put energy into. And in some ways that can calm down the entrepreneur because like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. My investor is not saying, yep, your life is totally over and the business is going to die. Right. So it's sort of that notion again of, and maybe I don't want to overuse the word empathy, but this idea of the importance of engaging with the founders and meeting them on their terms, whatever their headspace is, versus imposing yours on theirs. One last comment on that is angel investors are not perfect. I'm as a venture investor, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. And I have lots of pressures in lots of different ways. It's useful to sort of acknowledge in the context of engaging with the entrepreneur, what's going on in your world. If you're facing a bunch of pressure from something else, try not to aim that pressure at the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur or the founders have enough pressure on their own. It's a challenge, though, because most angel investors are busy and they have lots of responsibilities and lots of things going on in their world. And if you're having a crummy day, or if you're feeling a lot of pressure from something, or something isn't working, it's often kind of natural to have that applied to the other person. But it's doubly difficult when an entrepreneur gets sort of this heaviness, this negative feedback, this criticism, or this sort of negative emotional tenor from their angel investment, especially when it has nothing to do with the entrepreneur. So just as an angel investor, being conscious of that dynamic, and sometimes when I'm having a really crummy day, because something else is going wrong and I'm talking to an entrepreneur, I will say to the entrepreneur, I'll say, oh, look, I'm having a terrible day. So you know that I'm in a bad mood, I'm frustrated, I'm feeling a lot of pressure from this other thing over here that's going on. Please don't internalize my emotion as being anything to do with you. I'm going to try to get my head into helping you, but just know I'm not in a great space. Or it could be personal. Hey, I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. I just had a fight with my wife about something. You don't have to be that specific unless you want to be. You have that relationship with the founder. Just sort of being self-aware of your state when you're interacting as an angel with the entrepreneur can be very powerful and very helpful.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on the point of empathy. And I do have one of the companies in my portfolio who sends me a report every month. So it starts with the good, the bad, the ugly in red, right? So I know every time when I see the ugly that we need to have a phone call, and it's exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of empathy that you need to actually have, with these entrepreneurs, knowing that they do feel the responsibility, to report to their investors, to make sure that they're getting the right advices. So I do love those, and I'm going to write them and definitely going to repeat them over and over. I'm seeing lots of interesting questions, and I would actually defer my last one. One of the audiences is asking, can you be an investor and an investor and an entrepreneur at the same time?
You can, and many are. So today, especially in the US, if you look at a lot of financings that are done at the very early stages, you'll see many entrepreneurs of successful companies are angel investors in other companies. And there's a number of very powerful networks that have developed as a result of that. An example of a powerful network that is talked about a lot in the US is the network that emerged from PayPal. In 2001, and many of the people who were executives at PayPal who then turned on or went and created their next companies, many of the other of their executives who also had started companies invested in each other's companies. And, people like Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel, sort of healthy list, and it keeps going. There's Jeremy Stoppelman. There's probably 15 people or so that, as entrepreneurs, not just made angel investments in each other's companies, but also made angel investments in a bunch of other companies. If you look at some of the early investors in Twitter, you'll see some of those entrepreneurs. In Facebook, two of the very early investors were Reid Hoffman and Mark Pincus. Reid was running LinkedIn, and Mark Pincus ended up starting a company called Zynga. But at the time, I think he made the investment in Facebook. He might have been running a company called Tribe. So it's very, very common for that to happen. And in many cases, those are some of the best angel investors on the planet because they have experience as the founder, as the entrepreneur. And so they really can help and relate to that entrepreneur. They also bring credibility to the table for other investors. Oh, if this successful entrepreneur is an angel investor here, I don't necessarily know a lot about that business, but I want to invest alongside that successful angel investor.
Well, good to hear. Now we expect then some of the entrepreneurs, to start investing hopefully in the near future. So there's another question.
I just want to end on, I would strongly encourage that as part of the Saudi ecosystem. Like if you're thinking about as you're trying to build this startup community and this growing entrepreneurial ecosystem, entrepreneurs that have been successful recycling their capital, the money they made from their successful outcome, their experience, so the experience that they had being successful, as well as their networks of both other investors and customers and partners. That entrepreneurial recycling, which I talk about extensively in the new book, The Startup Community Way, is an extremely key characteristic of a healthy startup community.
Beautiful, and I do totally agree on that. We'll take one more question before we get your final words, Brad. There's a question here about when is the right time to exit for angel investors versus VCs?
I don't know that there's a good specific answer to that. I think there's two approaches. Some angel investors hold on to their position, until there's a liquidity event, a sale of a company or an IPO, and then when there's an IPO, they decide whether to hold their stock or sell their stock. That's one strategy. The other strategy is some angel investors get some liquidity in sort of Series B, Series C type rounds, as there starts to be more demand for the company at these. It's clearly successful at higher prices. I think probably the best angel investors have some mix of that strategy, which is, let's say you invest $25,000 in something, in a company, and then a Series C investor comes along and your $25,000 is now valued at $1 million. Fred Wilson has an approach that he's talked about pretty openly that's basically get your basis back. So at that moment in time, you would sell 25,000 of your $1 million worth of value and get your basis back. And so you'd still have $975,000 that's compounding, but you got 1 times your money back. So now you're playing all the upside. There's totally different strategies along that, but it's sort of picking a strategy and then being consistent. I think the mistake that people made, and I certainly made this in the 1990s, was I didn't have a clear strategy. So sometimes I held my stock until the end, and other times I sold my stock at some intermediate point. And when I reflect on those experiences, and I sell some of my stock and then hold the rest of it. The companies that I held my stock all the way down up to a big number and then down to zero, that was dumb. The companies that I sold my stock relatively early and those companies ended up being even more successful, that was dumb. So there's some other strategy that also, by the way, has to do with the magnitude that you have, right? If you've got an ownership stake in something that's just not material to your net worth, continuing to hold on to it, maybe it's additive, maybe it's not. If you've got something that is your net worth, everything, this outweighs everything else, being thoughtful about what to hold and what to sell is useful.
Thank you so much. Brad, would love, some final words. Our 30 minutes are over. It's never enough time with you. And I know I can see in the views, there's lots of questions. People are enjoying it. And we always learn something new from you. But you have been interacting also with the Saudi ecosystem, the regional ecosystem. I would like to hear your final words and advices, to us as we're evolving into a new really era of lots of venture capitals evolving, lots of entrepreneurs are aspiring, to actually build their companies. And today in the forum, we're pushing angels, towards that. So, and I would highly, recommend the book and the other one once it's arrived actually over here. So I want to hear your last words, to us.
It always makes me happy to see the book held up.
Always with me.
I think the next 20 years are going to be amazing for innovation and entrepreneurship. I think what's in front of us dwarfs the last decade of entrepreneurial activity. And sure, there will be plenty of ups and downs, and there are lots of things that won't work and lots of complexity. But I think we're on a trajectory, especially as entrepreneurship is being democratized around the world, where the impact, not just in terms of wealth creation, but innovation is something that will be widely distributed around the world. And Saudi Arabia is off to an amazing start, not just in the context of building the startup community, but also sort of leading forward with new ways of approaching this, ways of thinking about it, and being very forward thinking. So I just encourage everyone here to take a long view. Don't take a 6-month or 12-month or 2-year view. Take a 20-year view and know that there's just so much stuff in front of us.
Thank you, Brad. And that's what the startup community and the startup way actually talks about in details. Thank you so much for this wonderful, rich discussion. We really appreciate your time with us, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Amal and Brad. It was an amazing session. You set angel investment apart from venture capital investment, and you showed also how they can complement each other as well. It was a pleasure having you both. Ladies and gentlemen, according to ArabNet Business Intelligence, angel networks represent only 9% of active investment sources for MENA startups today. However, new angel networks are emerging across markets, and existing networks are growing their ranks. And this is why we have gathered some of MENA's most active angel networks to share best practices for angel investments. Please welcome our session moderator, Uqal Gharbiya Chairman, Mr. Abdurrahman Al-Jifri.
Assalamu alaikum. All right, perfect. So I'm very, very excited for this session. We talk about angel investing, and angel investing is one of those things that needs to be done right. It's a very thin line between an angel investor and a martyr investor, and understanding, learning people's best practices, seeing experiences that are facilitated by a forum like this are super important, which is why I'm very thankful for منشآت, for Gen Saudi, and for SVC for organizing something like this, which is super, super valuable. And I'm very excited for today to be learning from a very distinguished panel that we have right now, who are investing all over the region, all over the world, across continents, with very different perspectives, lenses, and how they invest, and how they not just invest for themselves, but also help facilitate other people's investments. So with that, hopefully we can welcome our fellow panelists, Kushal, Heather, Ali, and Nawaf. Heather, how are you doing?
Hi Abdurrahman.
Perfect. It's always the tension in the beginning, just making sure audio works well. So I think we can get started as all the other guests join in. We'll start with kind of why you got into angel investing. So what is the best and worst thing about being an angel investor? And we'll start with Nawaf, who's the CEO of Tenmu. And he's gone the whole gamut. So when you hear from Nawaf, understand that you're hearing from somebody who's been leading a company and seen it from the entrepreneur side, who's also seen it from the investor side, and also doing a lot of entrepreneur education, investor education in this space. So Nawaf, take it away.
مرحبا, مسيكم بالخير. So thank you, Abdurrahman, for the introduction. Basically, I'm the CEO of Tenmu, and Tenmu is the first angel investment company in the region. We started in 2011, where a group of 16 investors came together in Bahrain and put in $2.6 million and decided to invest in startups. That's way back then. The ecosystem was very nascent, and we didn't even have an ecosystem to start with. So very, very bold businessmen and a bank from the government, and also Aluminium Bahrain put in $1 million BD, which is $2.6 million, and they started investing in startups. From 2011 till today, we have managed to invest in 25 startups. However, the model shifted from being an investment company that invests in startups and conventional businesses and changed into tech companies. Since I joined 3 years ago, we developed an investment thesis that is basically basically is investing. We Tenmo invest in startups that are in Bahrain that have an average or an evaluation between $350,000 till $2.6 million, and we take an average of or an equity between 2 to 10%, and we also give an average ticket size of around $35,000. So our model is very different. We're not an angel network. We're basically an angel investment company. If you want to call it a closed angel group, so be it.
What is your favorite and least favorite thing about being an angel investor and playing this role?
Actually, personally, I'm an entrepreneur. However, being an angel investment or a CEO of a company that basically is an angel investment company, I love it. I came from a background that is totally different. I used to work for the government, and then I went and started my own business. And when the ex-CEO of Tenmo came, he's like, join, it's such a different, cool world. I was like, okay, let me give it a try. I never regretted the moment that I joined. It's basically we're changing lives. We're giving people opportunities to expand and grow their businesses.
I'm hearing a lot of the positives, Nawaf. I just want to hear like a little dose of reality just for everybody.
The reality is sometimes, because we're limited in investing in like 4 to 5 startups a year, I wish we can do more. This is the drawback of being in an angel.
I have to say, I love your life. It's like I have so many good deals. I just don't know what to do with them. This is the hardest thing that I'm doing right now. That is incredible.
So basically, sometimes we get stuck with only investing in 4 or 5. Maybe we also get we get in a position with the startup and the founder, and sometimes we don't agree on terms. So this is one of the main
for me.
So Kishal, you wanna?
I was gonna say, for me, is when Heather and Ali get a better deal than me and I lose all my money. That's my worst thing. They get it and I don't. It's like, that's bad.
Oh, what if we all do the same deal together? Even better, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Because you guys come together. So you're like international, but us in Tenmo, our shareholders emphasize on investing in local startups, just because their businesses from Bahrain and they want to give back to the local community. But that doesn't mean we don't invest in companies that are non-Bahraini founders. However, we want to have this local touch. You can be a startup in the region coming to Bahrain, or you can be a branch opening in Bahrain, and then we can do that.
Thank you, Nawaf. So that's great to hear. Now, we've been talking a lot about angel investing. It's a pretty important topic, and we want to cover kind of the transformation points. So Ali is the founder of Cairo Angels. He came back from London, started, in a totally different industry, jumping into this with both feet. So Ali, can you give us a sense of, take us back in time as you were coming back to the region, you were getting into angel investing. Why did you start angel investing? And why build a network? Why should I be part of a network as I'm doing this?
Thanks, Abdurrahman. Assalamu alaikum. It's great to see everybody, so many familiar faces. So Nawaf, Heather, Kush, great to see you. I think for me, coming back to the region, I used to work in London. I'm a lawyer by trade. I think once a lawyer, always a lawyer. I really believed in the talent in the region and the potential. So for me, this was a very exciting journey. So when I came back to the region and I kind of started building my, let's say, my mainstream working brand as a lawyer or my practice, I've always had like an entrepreneurial bug, but I didn't know how to channel it. So I was talking to a friend of mine one evening. She happened to be the managing director of Endeavor at the time. And basically she said, Ali, everything you're describing, I mean, if you don't have the time to fully, leave everything behind and the opportunity cost that comes with that, and to throw yourself into an idea as a fully fledged entrepreneur, there is like a cheat button, like in the games, where you can basically kind of be in the back seat, and that's called angel investing, right? So I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting. So fortunately, we had just had the beginnings of a club here. So the founder of Cairo Angels, Hossein, had also, his starting was that he invested in London at the London Business School. He was in the club there, came back, it didn't exist as a concept. So he said, why can't this work here? And when I joined him, it was still quite nascent. But I think honestly, I loved it. I love the fact that I could be speaking to people on cutting edge in doing so many cool, innovative things. And I think like Nawaf, I still find it so exciting until today. So that was kind of my transformation, I guess. And it's been 9 years now, and I still love it.
Perfect. So Heather, can you give us a sense? You have been in investing for a long time. You've made over 100 investments, and you've helped create the Women Angel Investor Network in Dubai. Why should I be part of a network as an angel investor? What is the advantage there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, look, there are lots of reasons. One is you get access to more deals. So, just me going out and trying to invest on my own is really tough. So if you're part of a group, it's also a lot more fun. And I think that's why a lot of us got involved to start out with. It's really, we have kind of this almost addiction to working with exciting entrepreneurs. A lot of us are probably futurists, so we see kind of what's coming, and maybe it's more exciting or more interesting than our day job. And some of us are kind of reformed founders. I got involved initially because I'd started a microfinance company. I started a mobile money company, and just, I didn't really know much about angel investing, but I had 2 angel investors who were pivotal in the business, and were a lot more than just the money. So we talk a lot about the idea of smart capital, and I think getting the right angel investors in can make the big difference for a founder in terms of how her or his business, what kind of success it faces. And I think also it's really about affinity investing. So it's a lot more exciting and maybe more risky. Well, it is definitely more risky than stock market investing. So and you get to be operational and hands-on. So being part of groups, you meet a lot of like-minded people. Pretty much there's not been an angel investor who I haven't liked. They're always interesting people to hang out with. And then, just being part of a community, I think, is why a lot of us get involved to begin with. A lot of us are community builders. We like to get involved in supporting and kind of this idea of pay it forward. And then, you need a portfolio to make money in this business. It is very high risk. So we know the numbers, right? 1 in 10 will make it. So if you don't have at least 10, if not 20 companies that you're invested in, you're likely not going to make money in this. So, those are really the main reasons.
So, being an angel investor is interesting that you empathize with the entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is usually disrupting existing players. They're usually competing against much larger, more well-funded entities. And as an angel investor, you're also competing with other sources of capital much larger funds that are more that are specialized and focusing on, who have people working on this full time. So it takes a special kind of vision to be able to see and find outsized opportunities. So Kushal, you've probably used the most metaphors than any angel investor I've spoken to. I think the most apt description I have of you is a cookie collecting surfer. So you surf big waves and you collect cookies, and I'll allow you to explain what you mean by cookie collector. So how do you spot, those opportunities that most people don't? How is it that you get a better, more intimate lens as an individual who doesn't necessarily dedicate 100% of their time to this?
So, in normal investing, people use debt for leverage. In angel investing, our leverage is other people. Our leverage is other people's intelligence. So whether it's the other angels we're working with, Ali, Heather, Nawaf, etc., or it's the founder's intelligence. So I'm always looking for that because that's my leverage. It's a bit like going to look for bank debt. And also when I started investing in the angel world, it didn't exist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be. I would have put the money if I knew about it. You can say that afterwards. So that in terms of surfing the wave, it's pretty clear almost in every environment when things are disrupting, because you see big companies starting to fall, you start to see famous noises starting to happen. So when Amazon started making noise, and everybody was like, is this going to survive or not? It doesn't matter if it's going to survive or not. What matters is it's disrupting everybody else around it. So once you see that noise, you got to participate in it one way or the other. And since we live in the Middle East, and the noise starts usually either on the east or the west, we can watch it somewhere else and take action before it comes to us. So that's the kind of play I was doing.
Okay. So Nawaf, can you tell us more about how you actually make sure that you find great deals and opportunities, that they either find you or you either find them? How do you ensure you have really good deal flow?
So in Tenmu, our deal flow comes from different places or sources. One is that we headhunt people in Bahrain, or startups that come and set up in Bahrain. We go and meet them. This is one. Secondly, our website has an application process as well. Thirdly, and one of our favorite ways to invest in startups is through accelerators. We tied up and we signed an MOU with the Plastic Labs. So we literally go and meet their startups when they're in the cycle. And then we see whether they're fit and they come within our investment thesis. So I think my favorite way to invest in a startup or get a deal is from accelerators.
So I want to take that word, investment thesis. Every investor gets that temptation. If you have actually gone through the step of creating a thesis, then you'll see opportunities that excite you, that are outside of that scope. Do you say no 100% of the time, or is going out of it considered flexibility or lack of discipline? So I'll just get quick takes from you, starting with Heather.
Sorry, Abdulrahman, can you repeat the question? You're asking if we invest in things that are outside of our thesis?
Yes. I mean, do you consider that like a crime, or is that something that we can afford some flexibility?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, so recently I started a new fund called Mindshift Capital, which is more of kind of a, managed funds, GPLP structure. So in that one, we do have to we have to stick more to our thesis, which is we invest in 4 sectors, food tech, fintech, health tech, ed tech, gender lens. So, when companies started by women and globally, not just in the region, although a lot of our deal flow comes out of the region. But I think, we also are opportunistic. So we've invested in companies that don't fit that, but that's part of what the whole game is, right? I mean, things change. Look at COVID. If you had this really strict, box that you were investing in, you would be screwed. You know, you wouldn't be able to go outside of it when things change. I mean, just like entrepreneurs have to be agile and pivot, we also as investors have to be the same way, I think. So, and typically an angel, I mean, really it's early stage tech. I don't know that many angels that are really strict about what they're investing in, because it is also, you know, it's about the people, the teams, and that, you know, isn't, it's hard to really be so rigid when you're going in as first money after the founder. So, so yeah, I would say, you know, angels are pretty open.
So, if you don't change your style, you don't know what happened. You got to keep changing.
I love the Kushal. Great use of chat filters. So Ali, do you agree? Do you stick within your thesis, or do you allow yourself some room to kind of move?
No, look, I'm a very structured person, but I think that when I look at investing, you know, I very much kind of follow the not only portfolio look for the angel investments that I make, but also for my entire savings and investments, right? So I guess I'm more structured in conventional investment strategies, but angel investing for me is the high risk piece where you need to kind of be imaginative, right? So I think we're trying to invest in tomorrow's technology. So if it's like the 10th or the 100th thing, it's not going to really excite you, right? So I think to be a successful angel investor, you already have to have that curious side where you're going to meet sometimes people who are like, what the hell are they talking about? The first thing you're going to ask is like the question, but at the same time, I think as you build confidence, you need to understand it, but you also have to have that kind of piece where it's like, oh, wow, these guys are maybe onto something really exciting, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the thesis goes out the window, but not fully, because I think it's still not charity, right? So you need to still have like some fundamentals, like is it scalable, is it exitable, you know, and so on. So within those, keeping those parameters in mind, I would say I agree with Heather that you need to kind of put caution to the wind a little bit when it comes to you know, sector thinking or stuff like that.
Nawaf, what do you think? Are you well within, very disciplined within the thesis, or do you allow yourself permission to kind of eke out just a little bit?
Maybe we want to stick to our investment thesis because we're a company. So our investment committee is very strict. We actually don't take a deal and do the due diligence and take it to the investment committee without having parameters and guidelines. And sticking to the investment thesis is what we want. However, we in Tenmu are ecosystem builders in Bahrain, and part of our programs is to, or part of what we do is to create this angel investment ecosystem in Bahrain. So we launched a new program, which is an angel investment education program. That is where we work with Canteen, and we literally educate investors or family offices or businessmen to invest in startups. So if a deal that is not within our investment thesis, or a deal that is within our investment thesis, we try to bring in these investors and go in hand together and co-invest in a deal. So we don't want to miss out on an opportunity as much as we can. Either we
that's good to hear, because
so
sounds like earlier, you know, as an individual, you have, you know, you allow yourself certain flexibility, but as you create companies, you have bigger funds, you try to kind of stay within bounds. But it's wonderful that, you know, through the angel network, other kinds of startups also get opportunities to close investment. The next question is going to be a little bit controversial. So, you know, I'll start with Ali, because I think he'll win some friends with this one. First-time founders, uncut gems or kryptonite? Do you invest
Superman
in first-time founders? Why or why not? Ali.
Sorry, you're breaking up, Abdurrahman. Can you just repeat the question?
Do you invest in first-time founders? Are they gems, uncut gems, or kryptonite is the question. And why or why not?
Yeah, no, I don't personally. So we have a very big membership at the Cairo Angels. We're now at about 90 members. So we need to keep our investment thesis a bit flexible because we have a club model. We've just launched our own micro fund, which will have a slightly more, let's say, restrictive investment thesis. But for me personally, because I don't only invest through Cairo Angels, I'm proud to be part of other groups as well. I have developed over time to move away from first-time founders. And that come at the cost of learning. So, like I have invested in first-time founders, tried it, didn't work for a number of reasons. Actually, I've kind of moved to the other side now. I think there was a study last year, something that showed that some of the most successful entrepreneurs are like sometimes like 45, 50, 55. It really rung true with me because some of my better investments, even if they don't work, I think they've worked better. Like I felt the chemistry works better because they have a bit more life experience. And frankly, also, I think the best startups that I've invested in that have actually made amazing returns are the ones where you have a more mature founder. They've been there, they've done that, or they've come from the corporate world, very successful in the corporate world, and they decided, you know what, I've also been there, done that. I'm willing to take a really tough risk now and shift gears and put my reputation on the line doing something really exciting. So, I'm not an ageist. I think, isms are not good, but I am going to have to be a bit controversial and say that I do like to go for the more mature founders.
Okay.
But Ali, isn't it hard to, don't you kind of limit your investment pool in the region, given that most of the founders are first-time founders?
That used to be the case. I think is a lot more people coming from those backgrounds, building startups. And to me, that's a new exciting wave in the region. And I would say we're going to see more of that in the next few years for sure.
Okay. Sorry, Kushal, go ahead.
I have an issue with second-time founders. I put 3 E's against them. They're elder, they're more expensive, they have an ego. So sometimes these guys, if
and they're usually men.
There is no right or wrong. But the first-time founders, they have the energy, they have the passion, they are way cheaper. So as long as we have the ability to kind of support them, which is hard because mentoring a first time is always hard. The potential output and the impact that potential output has is massive. And second, technology is changing so fast, especially for investing in technology. The younger ones, the more first-time ones, are more likely to be inside that technology compared to the second time. Again, no right or wrong, but that's my personal feeling. Sorry, Heather.
No, I agree. I think it's hard to limit. It's so kind of depends on the opportunity and the business, and it's kind of like the people who say they won't invest in solo founders. So and it's hard to have. I think it's just hard to have hard lines in this business because some of it's just chemistry. What I've learned is, especially on the angel side, you end up spending a lot of time with this person, especially if you end up being on boards or whatever. So it's also important to invest in people who you can kind of, you have that relationship with. So ideally people who you like spending time with, otherwise, it's not very pleasant. So, I know some people will only invest in just what they view as sort of like the crazy, off the wall, difficult people, but those people aren't always easy to mentor, to work with. I guess, to say it politely.
Nawaf, how about you? Do you enjoy working with first-time founders, high energy, maybe lacking in some experience, or do you prefer the Kushal 3 E's?
So basically, out of experience from our 25 investments that we've done, all of them were first-time founders. So I don't know. We don't have any experience on the second. Maybe second. So founders that have other startups and they want us to invest and have a bit of an ego issue. Definitely, they don't want to come to us because they're like, we need more. You guys are you give smaller ticket sizes and we've made it. So personally, they don't come to us. So I don't know. So yeah, all of them are first-time founders.
Okay. You know, one thing I would add is, if the business fails, the founder needs to hurt. So he's going to put all his effort to prevent it failing. And if it's a second-time founder and they've got a little nest egg or a little bit somewhere stocked away, it doesn't hurt as much. You know, yes, it hurts reputation-wise, and yes, they make probably 9 times less mistakes. But I like the pain.
But Kush, the opportunity cost is higher though, right? Because if they're older, you know, they've left their career, like, you know, it's if they're giving up more to start the business.
Yeah, different from being a first time versus second time. Older is, I don't have an issue with younger, older. I have an issue with somebody who is not giving up everything for the business.
Mm-hmm.
The mysterious parallel entrepreneurs who are able to, you know, spin out multiple startups at the same time.
Yeah.
Abdulrahman, can I ask Ali a question about that? So what about, I mean, do you care about the track record of the first business? Does it have been a success for the second time founder, or do you also like kind of failed businesses?
No, I mean, honestly, I look at those data points. And I think I agree with Kush that grit is essential. So that, you know, that grittiness is a key factor you look at, and then they need to put it all on the line. So, you know, part-time doesn't work for us at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, once you're working full-time, if I'm going to be putting my own money on this venture. But no, I mean, if they've had a successful business before, fantastic. If they've had a really good go, but they failed, that also works. So we're not picky when it comes to that, but I do look. I'll be very, very transparent. I think some of the bad taste I got in the mouth was not necessarily on sort of the excitement versus how to deal with difficult situations. And I think when you have some more life maturity, you know how to deal with difficult situations. Go in a more mature way. So if you can get that when you're young or you're old, that's great. That's kind of what I'm more after, you know.
So I want to touch on one important part. As an angel investor, you are able to provide value to the company. You're there as an individual, and you're able to pick and choose. But the extent of that involvement is sometimes a little bit vague and murky. I want to talk a little bit about board management. So Heather, can you tell us, like, do you typically ask for a board seat, or do you ask them to create an advisory board? Like, how do you help entrepreneurs navigate that side of their company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to set that up right from the start. So I always tell founders, even if it's just, you know, you haven't brought in any other investors, even if it's just the 2 or 3 of you, get your board started, start kind of documenting what you're doing. It doesn't mean you have to put together big board packs and lots of information and make it, you know, a big time suck. But, you know, it's really important to get the structure set up. And then typically what I do, the boards that I'm on, just especially, you know, at seed rounds, is we do monthly board meetings. So, and again, these aren't like kind of corporate board with lots of minutes and documents, but it's really a chance for founders to have, you know, just a check-in point And, you know, I'm on Slack, I'm on WhatsApp, whatever with them. I talk to them frequently, but I think just having that one monthly session where you sort of put everything aside and then just focus on like, how's the business really doing? What are the big challenges? What are the big opportunities? You know, sometimes as a founder, you get really kind of day to day and you don't have the sort of the 20,000 foot view. So that's, I think, a role that angels can play and something that we should play.
Also, and your time is constrained, Heather. So how do you handle, like, how many startups do you know that you
I can't be on so many boards. I mean, this is one of, I don't understand how, you know, I know some mainly partners at funds who are on like 12 to 20 boards. I don't know how they do it, but I think it's what they call the coffee and donuts meetings where where you just show up and you're not actually really, you know, acting as a board. But I'm on now, I think 6 boards. So, and that's really my limit. You know,
and do you cycle out? So as soon as you know, do you just leave a board and join a new one? Is 6 kind of the optimum ratio for you?
I think it just depends. And it's hard when everyone's crashing at once, you know, but hopefully just, you know, there's a mix because they're all in different sectors. I mean, COVID has been really tough, you know, because I think not just because they've all been doing badly, some are actually doing amazingly, but that still just takes, you know, more time, more energy, more things going on, more things to respond to, especially fundraising. If there's one board I'm on now where it's a US company and they're doing a fundraise, but they also got an acquisition offer. So it's been like, yeah, it's been tough in terms of time. But yeah, I would say, I mean, generally the way it works with boards and startups, you know, you might have like one investor go on at seed round, and then once Series A happens, maybe you increase the board to, let's say, 5 people. So you've got an independent, you've got a seed, you've got A, and then maybe the 2 founders. So then there's sort of this natural time to step off, I think, right? You know, either like post A, or also if I'm not adding value, I'm not going to be on the board. You know, I'm not somebody who, some investors want to have boards to have control. That's totally not my feeling at all. You know, if I don't know the business, or if I can't help or support, I don't think I should be on the board.
Okay. So Noah, how do you consider board management? Do you expect a seat on the board, or do you just create an advisory board, or do you set like a specific time? How do you handle it?
For us, it depends on the equity, how much equity we have in the company. So I think it's unfair for us to like be in a board seat where we have minimal or small equity in a company. And also depends on whether we come very early or later. If the company is like fresh and they just raised around and then we came on board, they might need mentoring and guidance, and being in the board can help with that. However, if we invest in a company that already graduated from an accelerator program and they have a couple of investors, I think our involvement would be in a different way. So,
okay. So we have, you know, a couple of quick questions related to this that I think would be very instrumental. That I see a lot of people get some confusion there. So they're asking about compensation structure in exchange for board membership, and I think it would be helpful to kind of talk about both advisory boards and, you know, a formal board of a company. Kushal, you want to take a stab, or if somebody else is interested?
Yeah, if the question is around whether the board should be compensated, especially at these early stage startups, I would say typically no, especially from an angel network kind of scenario. Most of us are compensated by the impact of this, not as an individual sitting seat. As it gets bigger and the involvement is a lot corporate, I think that's a different topic. Sometimes get advisory shares, etc. And you have to play a big role to get those advisory shares, not just sit on a board thing. You kind of have to help significantly in fundraising, help in getting your hands very dirty. So I typically say 0.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, if you're building like an advisory board and you need to attract a certain level of, expertise, you're in a very regulated industry or health tech, etc. I mean, sometimes you'll see some common shares given away in those specific cases. But yeah, I think Kushal hit it out of the park. So I wanted to kind of dig more into exits. I mean, it's the rarest beast in the industry right now. It's almost a celebration every time there is a publicly known exit event. So, like, do you just assume as you're investing that I am not exiting, I'm in this for the long haul because that's the market I'm in, or have you found other ways to kind of engineer exits as you're investing so you can recycle and reinvest? Ali, can you kick us off?
Yeah, this is a really important question. For us, I think one of the most difficult things to explain is, okay, you guys have been doing this for some time now. Where the exit, right? And I think that's a very important, and it's a question we have to answer it head on, which is our region is still nascent. We're still building. But as I said, I still think that we have all of the ingredients are falling into place, and and already the next 10 years are going to be more exciting than the last 10 years, much more exciting. People need to keep believing, but I think we also need to be problem solvers. So asking people to have patient capital for 10 years is a very difficult ask. And I think that what we are starting to do is that we are having very open discussions with the founders and also this sort of the VC investors to say, look, as angels, if you want to still have pipeline, you need to allow us to have some money off the table when we get to maybe like Series B or Series C. Honestly, that discussion in the beginning was obviously new, because I think for a lot of them were, just like, why should I do something if I don't have to? But I think they're much more open to that now, and I'm glad to say that it's become sort of a standard ask for us, that we have an allocation under certain conditions where we can put our shares in a more advanced round to take some money off the table.
Okay. Kushal, what are your thoughts around exits, and how do you kind of plan around it?
We always need to look for an exit, because at some point I've been in situations where we were 10x, 20x 1 minute, and then 6 months later
zero the next day.
Literally zero. That's the same business. So taking money off the table to allow to rotate it, to allow to excite the other angels around you, not just yourself, is important. And as Heather said earlier, the hit rate is very low. You have a lot of defaults in a long period of time, 10 years. The industry here is still nascent, so probably most angels have only had a total vintage of, 5-6 years max. There's a few which might have had 10 years. So wait till the death rates climb, wait till the next economic cycle hits. So the pain of losing companies is high. So you need to balance it with taking some money off the table. At the same time, do you
have like a fixed rule for that, Kushal? Do you say like for every deal, as soon as the opportunity comes, I'm gonna at least exit with liquidate 30%, or do you just do it on a case-by-case basis?
It's very simple. We have 5 board members out of and say 10 IC members. It's a balance. 50% want to exit, 50 don't. So they have to argue their case why to stay, even sometimes put extra money versus exit. So the best argument wins, to be honest.
Okay. So it's about a debate of ideas for where the future is going to be. Heather, you've approached this you've got a fund that you're closing. You're doing this from an angel investor perspective. Do you have 2 different approaches to this, where you're wearing your VC hat versus angel hat, or do you find that you're consistent?
So angel, I think, take the money and run. whenever you get the opportunity to get cash, just take it. So we're actually working on 2 secondary share exits right now. That again, the thing that people don't think about is we always talk about multiples in terms of increase of value, but you have to also think about IRR. So there is this annualized return where, yeah, you might get a 3x after 2 years, which is awesome, but a 3x after 10 years, not so awesome. So again, time value of money also matters. So my feeling is always, and it's not always the same. Some people don't share this outlook, but yeah, I've had the same experience as Kush, where one, you think it's a 20x on your kind of your metrics, and then the next day it's 0. So it can change really fast.
And one more thing there is the dilution that happens over that period. Two types of dilution.
You get crammed down. Yeah.
And also the share class. Sometimes you're stuck with the non-preferred shares with a series class A versus class B. You get, as early angels, you do get stuck with some of these issues.
And you can't get out, right? Yeah.
I have actually a question for everybody that's kind of done this. Like, are VCs asking you to take a discount on exiting versus the primary? Is that like standard? Is that standard ask and standard give, or?
Well, I'm actually in a souk type negotiation right now, which is ridiculous. So I only see this in the region. I don't see this in the US or Europe. But another one that we've just done, it was a straight, the problem was that there wasn't like a priced round recently in the last, let's say, 12 months. So technically it would be discounted, but yeah, at least it's just at least what the last raise amount was at. But yeah, I see that a lot where, it's just crazy to go back and forth over these discounts.
Well, I think 25% is a standard discount, to be honest.
25, Kush?
Yeah, we've seen it maybe almost in every deal. That's the standard that keeps coming.
Wow.
We try not to go beyond 20%, but yeah.
The other side of it, and this one's for directed at you, Nawaf, is I'm seeing all this talk about founders getting a partial exit just so that they're not under as much financial pressure. If you're dealing with a lot of first-time founders, maybe they haven't thought about that. Maybe for them, it's something they haven't considered. How do you help entrepreneurs think about that? Do you encourage them to get a partial exit? Do you prefer that they just hold on to all their shares all the way? Like, how do you approach it?
For us, it's the other way around. We partially exited from one deal because we wanted to show our shareholders that there's money in this business and the model is right. So we partially exited from one startup and made 20x, and we still own equity in the startup that we have a percentage right now. For founders, definitely. For us in the region, maybe they should be thinking of merger and acquisitions more than maybe exiting very early. This is what we anticipate from many of our startups, because they're basically their solution is similar to the ones in the States. So eventually, we're looking at a merger and acquisition from the international companies to take over, similar to what happened with Karim and Uber.
So I wanted to tap into that, because you've got like corporates tend to be the least mentioned player when we're talking about startup ecosystems. How do investors, angel networks, how can we get more corporates involved, and that may hopefully stimulate more M&A activity down the line?
For us, so 30% of our capital is given by corporate. So we have Bahrain Development Bank and Alba, which is the biggest aluminium smelter outside of China and the world, invested in Tenmo. So that was the start in 2011. We would love to see more of corporates engaging in angel investing in the whole ecosystem. So they will provide more support. They would also provide funds to create more startups. I'm looking at, or I would love to see family businesses, traditional conventional businesses, provide support and funding for the formation of new startups, or maybe not, investing in startups and using their solutions and platforms, because most of the conventional family businesses in the region or in Bahrain, they're very conventional. COVID pushed them to go online. If it wasn't for COVID, they didn't even think of online or digitalizing their whole sales and selling their producs. So I think
we've gotten a decade's worth of digital transformation.
Yeah,
as a result of this. It is pretty.
So imagine if these family businesses invested in some of the startups locally, most of the solutions would be given to them easily, and they can onboard their services, and they can benefit from both sides. So I would love to see more corporates, especially the family traditional businesses that
I agree. I think that's one of the untapped ways.
So hundreds of years they've been in the business in the region, and really they're not even close to a digital stage.
I wanted to bring up a topic near and dear to all of our hearts: valuations. So they tend to keep creeping upwards, and that's a result of both increased excitement, increased investor activity, which is wonderful, increased entrepreneur sophistication in some cases, and maybe increased media and hype in others. How do you find yourselves helping guide entrepreneurs, steer them towards what is a fair valuation? Kush, can you take us off?
Oh, this is an interesting one. So first of all, it's about competition for the same deal, which is the investor side. But on the supply side, they're also now, for every one company that's backing, I don't know, a good example would be Open API banking. Suddenly there's 4 of them. Those valuations were steep because you were the only one. Well, actually, there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. So I think that benchmarking is important. Then you get really into what's differentiating with this particular company versus the other. So I think the supply side is helping us now. The demand side has gone a little bit out of whack, too much capital and competition between the countries as well. And let's be quite explicit, you start to see capital within each country rather than across the board. So as angels, we love going early, and this gives us our chance to go a secondary exit. The last thing there is, most of our angels are executives of large corporates, so they're used to the corporate decision-making process of make the business case. Don't just give me a valuation. There has to be a business case behind that.
Yeah, can I just chime in here, Abdulrahman?
Take it away.
Yeah, so actually on this, I think we also are a bit to blame as angels, because I think that the mindset is a bit competitive, and I think if we change that to more collaborative, instead of competing on 3 different deals, and I'm gonna get this one, you're gonna get that one, let's just all go on 3 deals, and that way we can have a sensible discussion about valuation, and we can avoid things like prestigious magazines talking about the most funded startups, because most funded is not a metric of success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the trickier topics, and you're trying to give founders a long-term vision that having a down round in the future is a death knell. It is super important. I wanted to kind of go on a slight tangent. How do you better align with investors that are coming down the line, that are investing later stages, so that you kind of protect your interests? How do you make sure that you consistently have good deals, good terms moving forward? Heather, I mean, you've been in the fund game for a while. You've structured different kinds of financial products over the years. How do you make sure that it's it's compensating for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. So finding the investors that you can work with on both sides, upstream if you're an angel, and even if you're just early stage VC like we are as Mindshift, we have to be able to look at who's coming in later, because we're not going to be in for every follow-on round. But I think it's also one of the confusing parts of our region, where everyone is pretty much in every stage. So even when you have these VC funds who say they're like later stage, because there aren't so many later stage deals, they end up still doing seed rounds. And, and it makes it very hard to navigate, I think, as to guide the entrepreneurs, but also as investors. I'm more a fan of syndicating rounds as much as possible. I'd much rather have more investors in, not exactly every investor in the region, because that gets, creates a really messy cap table. But I think having, a few good investors in is much better than just one investor taking the entire round. I don't like the Sequoia model, just because, again, typically founders need as much help as they can get, and just they're under-resourced. So the more people involved, the more support they're getting, assuming that all the investors are good investors. So I'll leave it there.
I have to say, this was a lot of fun. I can't believe how quickly time flew by. I still have like 2 pages of questions that I could have gone through. The audience has a lot of questions that they're excited for too. They said earlier in the opening that, angel investors are the crazy ones, and, insanity is infectious, and there's no better group than this panel to share that passion with. So really, really thank you very much. So as a final word, I'd like one quick piece of advice. If you could travel back in time before, at the time of you making your first investment, what is 2 sentences of advice that you'd give yourself if you could? Starting with Nawaf.
Don't miss that opportunity.
You have a specific list. All right, Ali?
Yeah.
Don't choose sleep over the missed opportunity.
Yeah. And don't listen to other people. Yeah. Maybe.
Kush?
Never say anything bad. It comes around.
Okay. That's a good one. Agreed.
You want to know more about that story?
Heather?
Get out faster. Get out when you can.
So thank you so much for our great panelists. Thank you, Munshad. Thank you, everybody. Please participate in the polls. Make sure to engage. We learned a lot about how to find deals, how to work with other investors, how to add value and manage a board, and how to exit without missing those opportunities, as Kush said. Thank you very much, and have a great day. The next keynote will be an incredible one.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.